So now what I'm going to talk about, we're going to talk about installing the central control unit. So what you're going to get in the box is only two pieces. You're going to get the Android tablet itself. This is the brains of the central control unit. It's what connects to the Wi-Fi and connects your system, your site, to the cloud for remote access. It also comes with the control moat. The control moat is going to be your input and output terminal and your sub-base station for charging and connecting your tablet. The control moat also has the 900 megahertz antenna on board. That's for all of your local mesh communication between all of your devices. So with that, let's talk about how mounting this works and give you a few tips. All right, so to mount this device, you've got two vertical holes and two horizontal holes. The vertical holes are spaced according to a single gang junction box. So you could connect this directly to a single gang junction box as long as it's vertically stacked. The device is too wide to be able to connect to a single gang junction box this way. So if you're going to do that, you use these other two holes with a couple of drywall anchor type screws. When you're doing the mounting, the central control unit does not come with any screws for mounting. You need to provide your own. When you're doing that, you need to take note of the thickness of the device. So you see that this hole goes through and you're going to actually mount to the back piece of plastic. And when you do that, you just want to make sure that the screw that you use is about 1 1/4 inches long. And the reason for that is so that the head of the screw is outside of the front plastic when you're trying to line the screw up with your hole. So as long as you do that, you'll have a good time. If you try to use 3/4 inch screws, they're going to fall down inside here and you're going to wind up losing them. So when you're actually wiring the device, after you get it mounted, you're going to bring your wires through the hole on the back, and then you've got some terminals on here. So on the right side, I've got my dedicated power. This is 24 volts AC or DC. More often than not, it's going to be AC. On the bottom, I've got my electromechanical relays, just like a traditional thermostat. So this can act as the AHU controller in a multi-zone application. Then I've got my 4 analog outputs down here. So if I'm going to integrate with an existing unit controller for duct static pressure resets or supply air temp resets, I can use those. Up at the top, I've got 4 thermistor inputs and 2 analog inputs that can be used for supply air temps and things like current transformers. I've got an RS-45 terminal here, and I've also got my sensor bus connection here, and that would be used for the backup temp sensor. So when we talk about sensors, we can talk about that as well. When you're actually terminating the wires in here, typically if you're using solid core wire, these are poke-in style connectors. You can take the wire, strip it back about 1/2 inch, and just poke it into the hole. If you're using stranded, which is more common with the thermistors, what you can do is you can depress the top. There's a little, what looks like a button on the top of each one. You can depress that and it loosens up the spring inside so that you can insert your wire, and then you release the spring and it gets a nice tight hold. All right. When you're doing the wiring, depending on the type of AHU you're connecting to, sometimes you need dedicated power for the tablet. The tablet can draw up to 20 VA when it's charging. So if it's charging, or if your existing transformer doesn't have enough VA rating, you might want to pull the R connect jumper and isolate dedicated power for the tablet. That way you know that you're going to get a secure connection and you're not going to overload a transformer. Okay. So that's the wiring. Next, let's talk about how we put this thing, the tablet, on here. So once my wiring is done, I've mounted it. On the very bottom, there's 2 tabs. I've got a tab here and a tab here. Those tabs line up on the bottom of the tablet so that I make a secure connection with these pogo pins down on the bottom. Those pogo pins are what connect my 900 megahertz antenna and all of my inputs and outputs to my tablet. Then I've got these little locks up here. These are what actually lock the tablet in place and lock it down to the station. And to release those on the top, I have these two spring releases here that releases these locks. So if I push them in like so, it releases those springs. Then it snaps back. It's got a spring of its own to lock them in place. And if I want to make this additionally secure, there's this little rib here in the middle. I can lock that. And now I can't even push this in unless I know to first pull this out. So that's one way of making the tablet more secure if you have it mounted in a public location. So with that, once I get my tablet, I'm going to dock it. It guides itself onto those two tabs, and I snap it back into place. And now I have a nice seamless connection between the two. And then if you want to remove it, you just take those two tabs. It would be mounted against the wall. You push them in, and the tablet falls forward, and then you pick it up out of its base. And with that, that's your central control unit.